I stood there in my bridesmaid dress, mascara running down my face, as security escorted me out. 20 years of friendship, gone. But when my billionaire ex walked through those church doors, everyone who'd just humiliated me suddenly wanted to be my best friend. This is my story. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your life, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happened next will show you that sometimes the worst moments lead to the sweetest revenge. Stay till the end. Trust me, you won't believe the plot twist. Ashley and I met in second grade. When she offered me half her peanut butter sandwich, I'd forgotten my lunch money. And while other kids snickered, she just smiled and scooted over on the bench. That simple act of kindness sparked a friendship that I thought would last forever. We were inseparable through elementary school, navigating the awkwardness of middle school together. And by high school, everyone knew us as a package deal. You didn't get one without the other. We applied to the same colleges, cried together when we both got into state university, and became roommates freshman year. Every heartbreak, every triumph, every 2 a.m. breakdown during finals week, we weathered it all together. She was there when my mama got sick junior year, holding my hand in the hospital waiting room. I was there when her parents divorced senior year, letting her sob on my shoulder until my shirt was soaked through. We weren't just friends, we were sisters. At least, that's what I believed. After college, we got our first apartments, just blocks from each other. Sunday brunch was our religion. Wednesday, wine nights our therapy. We navigated entry-level jobs, terrible bosses, and even worse dates together. Ashley would joke that we'd probably end up as old ladies in rocking chairs, still gossiping about everyone in the neighborhood. I'd laugh and say I couldn't imagine life any other way. Then Brandon entered the picture. Ashley met him at a charity gala her company was sponsoring. He was everything she'd dreamed about. Tall, handsome, came from old money, the whole package. When she called me that night, gushing about this amazing man she'd met, I was genuinely happy for her. She deserved love, deserved someone who'd treat her like the queen she was. Brandon seemed to do just that. Designer bags appeared, weekend trips to the Hamptons, dinner at restaurants where they didn't even list prices on the menu. I watched my best friend transform, but I told myself it was just happiness. Love changes people, right? The designer clothes, the new way she pronounced certain words, the way she'd sometimes look embarrassed when I'd laugh too loud at restaurants. Those were just adjustments, I reasoned. She was entering a different world, and I wanted to support her journey. The engagement came 18 months later. Brandon proposed at his family's estate in Martha's Vineyard, with a ring that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Ashley FaceTimed me immediately, crying and flashing that massive diamond. "You have to be my maid of honor," she squealed. "I can't do this without you." Of course, I said yes. How could I not? This was Ashley, my sister, my person. Wedding planning started off like a dream. We spent hours on Pinterest, visited venues, tasted so many cake samples, I thought I'd never want dessert again. But slowly, things began to shift. Ashley hired a wedding planner, Catherine, a sharp-faced woman who looked at me like I was gum on her designer shoes. Suddenly, my opinions didn't matter as much. My suggestions were sweet, but not quite the vision. The vision, apparently, was something that belonged in a European castle, not attainable for a girl who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment. The bridesmaid dresses alone cost $3,000. When I quietly pulled Ashley aside and explained I'd need to payment plan it, she rolled her eyes. "Can't you just put it on a credit card? This is my wedding, Denise. It only happens once." The way she said it, like I was being difficult on purpose, stung more than I let on. But I smiled, maxed out my credit card, and told myself it was worth it for her happiness. The bachelorette party became my breaking point, or so I thought. I'd planned something special, something us. A weekend at the lake house we used to visit in college, complete with our favorite wines, a playlist of songs from our youth, and a scrapbook I'd spent months creating, filled with photos from our 20-year friendship. I'd saved for 6 months to afford it. But when Ashley arrived with her new friends, Brandon's sister, and her country club crew, the atmosphere shifted immediately. "This is quaint," Brandon's sister Margaret said, her nose wrinkling as she surveyed the cabin. "Ashley, didn't you mention something about Vegas?" I watched Ashley's face transform, watched her look around the cabin, the same one where we'd made so many memories, like she was seeing it for the first time. "Yeah, Denise tried her best." She laughed, that new tinkling laugh she'd developed. "She doesn't really understand the level we're operating on now." They spent the weekend on their phones, booking last-minute flights to Vegas, while I sat with that scrapbook in my lap, feeling like a fool. When they left Sunday morning, a day early, Ashley hugged me and whispered, "Thanks for trying, babe. Maybe next time run plans by me first." I should have known then, should have seen the writing on the wall. But love, real love, makes you blind to things you don't want to see. The wedding day arrived like a freight train. May 15th, a Saturday that promised perfect weather. I arrived at the venue at 6 a.m., ready to be the maid of honor Ashley needed. My dress was pressed, my shoes polished, my smile firmly in place, despite the knot in my stomach that had been growing for weeks. Ashley was already in the bridal suite, surrounded by Margaret and the country club crew. They sipped champagne and laughed about something on Margaret's phone. When I entered, the laughter stopped. "Oh, Denise," Ashley said, and something in her tone made my chest tight. "You're here." I pushed forward, determined to salvage our day. This was her wedding. My feelings didn't matter. I helped her into her dress, a stunning creation that cost more than most people's cars, and watched her transform into a princess. For a moment, when our eyes met in the mirror, I saw my Ashley, my best friend. But then Margaret appeared with the photographer, and the moment shattered. "Let's get some photos with the bridal party," the photographer announced. We assembled in the garden, a vision in sage green silk. The photos started normally enough, standard poses, practiced smiles. Then Margaret leaned over to her mother, Brandon's mother, Patricia. She didn't bother lowering her voice. At least they got her hair under control. I was worried she'd show up with one of those, what do they call them, natural styles. My spine straightened. I'd worn my hair in an elegant updo that I'd paid good money for, but apparently, that wasn't enough. Patricia laughed, that cultured laugh that sounded like ice cracking. "Well, you can only do so much. It's sweet of Ashley to be so charitable, keeping her old friends around." "Excuse me?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them. 20 years of friendship, thousands of dollars spent, countless hours of planning, and I was charity. The photographer lowered his camera. Everyone turned to stare. Patricia raised one perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "I beg your pardon." I said, "Excuse me, I'm standing right here. If you have something to say about me, at least have the courtesy to say it to my face." "Denise," Ashley's voice cracked like a whip. "What are you doing?" I turned to my best friend, searching her face for some sign of the girl who'd shared her sandwich with me all those years ago. "Did you hear what they said about me? About my hair? About being charity?" Ashley's face flushed. She glanced at Brandon, who stood with his groomsmen, looking annoyed at the delay. Then she looked at his mother, his sister, the photographer, everyone except me. When she finally met my eyes, hers were cold. "You're making a scene at my wedding. How could you be so selfish?" Selfish. The word felt like a slap. "Ashley, I've done everything for this wedding. Maxed out my cards, took time off work, planned events, supported you. Nobody asked you to do all that." She stepped closer, her voice rising. "God, Denise, this is exactly what they mean. You don't fit in here. You never have. I tried to include you because of our history, but you're embarrassing me." On my wedding day, the words hung in the air like poison. Somewhere, a bird chirped, oblivious to my world crumbling. I became aware of everyone staring, the other bridesmaids with their mixture of pity and relief that it wasn't them, the groomsmen shifting uncomfortably, the photographer capturing it all. "You want me to leave?" My voice came out smaller than intended. I want you to stop ruining everything." Ashley's face was red now, tears threatening her makeup. "This is my chance at a perfect life, and you're destroying it with your... My what, Ashley?" "My blackness." The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Brandon stepped forward then, placing a protective arm around his bride. "I think it's best if you go," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been told no. "We'll have security escort you out." Security. At my best friend's wedding. The same girl who'd held my hair when I was sick, who'd known all my secrets, who'd promised we'd be each other's maids of honor back when we were 12 and planning our dream weddings. Two men in black suits appeared as if from nowhere. As they flanked me, I took one last look at Ashley. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Suddenly fascinated by her bouquet, I wanted to say something profound, something that would make her realize what she was throwing away. Instead, I just nodded and turned to leave. The walk through the venue felt eternal. Guests were starting to arrive, and I felt their curious stares as security marched me past. My cheeks burned with humiliation, but I kept my head high. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me completely break down. We were almost to the parking lot when I heard the commotion. A fleet of cars had just pulled up. Not just any cars, but the kind you see in magazines. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, a Rolls-Royce. The valets scrambled, clearly not expecting this level of arrival. From the lead car, a midnight blue Bugatti, stepped a man I hadn't seen in 3 years. Jerome. My Jerome. Except this wasn't the Jerome I'd dated through college and 2 years after. This Jerome wore a suit that screamed custom-made, shoes that cost more than my rent, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd conquered the world. Our eyes met across the parking lot. His face went from curiosity to confusion to fury in the span of seconds. He took in the security guards, my tear-stained face, the bridesmaid dress, and put together a story that was probably pretty close to the truth. "Denise." He strode over, ignoring the security guards completely. "What's going on, Jerome?" My voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" "Brandon's my new business partner. We're launching a tech venture together." His eyes narrowed at the security guards. "Why are these men escorting you out?" I couldn't form words. The humiliation was too fresh, too raw. One of the security guards cleared his throat. "Sir, we need to complete our task. The bride requested." "The bride requested what?" Jerome's voice could have frozen hell. "That you manhandle a wedding guest." "She's been removed from the wedding party, sir. We're just following orders." Jerome looked at me then, really looked at me. I saw him take in every detail. The expensive dress I couldn't afford. The professional makeup now streaked with tears. The way I held myself, like I was trying not to shatter. He knew me well enough to read the whole story in my posture. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice deceptively calm. "You're going to step away from Ms. Richardson right now. And then you're going to go tell Brandon that Jerome Mitchell has arrived, and that I won't be entering that venue without her." The security guards exchanged glances. One of them spoke into his earpiece. Within minutes, Brandon himself appeared, his face already showing signs of panic. Behind him, like dominoes, came Patricia, Margaret, and finally, Ashley. "Jerome." Brandon's voice was too bright, too forced. "We weren't expecting you for another hour, and this is just a small misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Jerome stepped closer to me, not touching, but making his position clear. "Denise, would you call this a misunderstanding?" I found my voice then, fueled by his presence, by the way Ashley's face had gone pale. "I was told I don't fit in, that I'm an embarrassment, that I'm charity." I looked directly at Ashley. "By my best friend of 20 years. Jerome's jaw tightened. He turned to Brandon with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Interesting. You know, Brandon, when we discussed this partnership, I was very clear about my values, about the kind of people I do business with. Now, Jerome." Patricia stepped forward, her voice honeyed. Surely we can discuss this inside. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. Emotions run high at weddings. No. The word was final. I don't think you understand. I've known Denise for 8 years. If she's not welcome here, then neither am I. And neither is my $40 million investment in your son's company. The color drained from Brandon's face. Jerome, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm choosing not to do business with people who treat others as less than human. He turned to me then, his voice gentling. Would you like to leave? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Jerome offered his arm, and I took it, letting him lead me toward his car. Behind us, chaos erupted. Brandon's voice rose in panic. Patricia shrieked about lawsuits and contracts, and Margaret muttered something about everything being ruined. But it was Ashley's voice that stopped me. Denise, wait, please. I turned. She stood there in her princess dress, tears finally breaking through her perfect makeup. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Please don't go. You're my best friend. You've always been my best friend. I wanted to forgive her. 20 years of muscle memory screamed at me to run back, to hug her, to make it all okay. But I couldn't. Not this time. No, Ashley, I was your best friend, but you haven't been mine for a long time. I straightened my spine. I hope your perfect wedding is everything you dreamed of. Jerome opened the car door for me, and I slid into leather seats that smelled like money and possibility. As we pulled away, I saw Ashley collapse into Brandon's arms, Patricia gesturing wildly, and the security guards standing around looking lost. I'm sorry, I said once we were on the highway. You don't have to pull your investment. I know how important business is. Stop. Jerome glanced at me. First of all, I was already having second thoughts about Brandon. Too entitled, not enough vision. Second, you're worth more than any deal. You always have been. We drove in silence for a while. Finally, I asked, where have you been? 3 years, Jerome. You just disappeared. He sighed. I went to Silicon Valley, started a company, sold it, started another one, made more money than I ever dreamed of. He paused. I wanted to come back worthy of you, worthy of me. I laughed, but it was bitter. I just got thrown out of a wedding for not being good enough. No. He pulled over then, turning to face me fully. You got thrown out for being too real for fake people. Denise, do you know why we broke up? You said you needed to find yourself, build something. The old hurt surfaced. I understood. I left because I was scared. You were so sure of who you were, so comfortable in your skin. I was still trying to figure out if I was black enough for some rooms, white enough for others. You never did that. You just were. It intimidated me. I stared at him, this man who become a billionaire. I intimidated you. Your authenticity did. Your refusal to shrink yourself. I needed to go away and learn that those were strengths, not weaknesses. He took my hand. I'm not asking you to take me back, but I am asking if you'll let me be your friend, your real friend, the kind who doesn't ask you to be anything but yourself. 6 months later, I stood in a different venue, wearing a dress I'd chosen myself, surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was. It wasn't my wedding. Jerome and I were taking things slow, rebuilding our friendship first. Instead, it was the launch party for my nonprofit, funded by Jerome's investment, but built on my vision. Ashley had sent a few texts after the wedding. Apparently, things with Brandon fell apart quickly without Jerome's backing. His family's fortune was more reputation than reality, and without the tech venture, cracks began to show. She'd written a long apology email that I'd read once and archived. Maybe someday I'd be ready to forgive her, but that day wasn't today. You ready? Jerome appeared at my elbow, looking proud. Your speech is in 5 minutes. I smoothed my dress, a vibrant print that Ashley would have called too much, but that made me feel like myself. I'm ready. As I took the stage to address the crowd of supporters, donors, and the kids who'd be benefiting from our programs, I thought about that little girl who'd been offered half a sandwich in 2nd grade. She'd been so grateful for that small kindness. Now, I was in a position to offer so much more. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice strong and clear. "This foundation is about recognizing that everyone has value, regardless of their background, their income, or whether they fit in with someone else's vision of perfection." In the crowd, I spotted a few familiar faces from the wedding disaster. Margaret was there, trying to catch my eye, probably hoping to network with Jerome. Patricia had sent flowers with a card about unfortunate misunderstandings. Even Catherine, the wedding planner, had reached out, suddenly interested in planning nonprofit events. But the only faces that mattered were the kids in the front row. The ones who'd been told they didn't fit in, weren't good enough, needed to change who they were to be accepted. I knew exactly how they felt, and I was going to make sure they learned earlier than I did that the problem was never them. The speech ended to thunderous applause. Jerome winked at me from his table, that same crooked smile that had made me fall for him all those years ago. We weren't the same people we'd been in college, but maybe that was okay. Maybe we'd both needed to grow separately before we could grow together. As the evening wound down, I stepped out onto the balcony for some air. The city sparkled below, full of possibility. My phone buzzed with another text from Ashley, but I deleted it without reading. Some bridges, once burned, weren't meant to be rebuilt, and that was okay too. "You good?" Jerome joined me, loosening his tie. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He draped his jacket over my shoulders as the evening breeze picked up. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry it took me so long to figure that out." "Everything happens when it's supposed to," I said. "If you'd been at that wedding as my boyfriend, it would have been about you saving me. This way, I got to save myself. You just provided the exit strategy." He laughed, that rich sound I'd missed more than I'd admitted. "Always the wise one." "Not always," I corrected. "It took me 20 years to realize I was accepting crumbs from someone who used to share her whole sandwich. But you realized it," he pointed out. "That's what matters." As we stood there, watching the city lights, I thought about endings and beginnings, about friends who become strangers, and strangers who become home. Life had a funny way, of course, correcting when you finally stop trying to force yourself into spaces that were never meant for you. My phone buzzed once more. This time it was from one of the kids in our program, sending a photo from the party with a caption that read, "Thank you for showing me I don't have to shrink myself to shine." Now that was worth more than any wedding, any friendship that required me to be less than I was, any seat at a table where I had to beg for respect. I screenshot the message to save it, a reminder for days when I might forget my worth. "Ready to go back in?" Jerome asked. "Your public awaits." I took his offered hand, not as a lifeline this time, but as a partner. "Let's go." As we walked back into my party, full of genuine friends and authentic connections, I realized the truth. They hadn't thrown me out of that wedding. They'd freed me from a prison I didn't even know I was in. And for that, I was actually grateful. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that their value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see their worth. Comment below with your own friendship betrayal story. I read every single one. And remember, when people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. Subscribe for more real stories of triumph over betrayal.